The last great Indian civilization of Mexico was developed by the Aztecs. Although they had the highest civilization in North America, most of their culture was attained by conquest. The first notice in recorded history comes from 1168 AD, when they moved into the Valley of Mexico. They were invaders from the desert to the north. 200 years after they arrived, they controlled a large part of central Mexico. Religion was the moving force in Aztec life, and the priests who governed their society believed their gods demanded a continual supply of human hearts as sacrifices. War was a religious duty to the Aztecs, since only constant raiding could provide all the victims the gods demanded. Without sacrifices, they believed the gods would abandon them and the crops would not grow. When the Aztecs first arrived in the Valley of Mexico, they were forced to settle on marshy islands in Lake Texcoco. Here they built their capital city, Tenochtitlan. Mexico City today rests on the foundation of that ancient capital. To extend their islands and acquire more farmland, the Aztecs anchored huge dirt-filled wicker baskets to the bottom of the shallower parts of the lake and planted crops in them. The trees they planted took root and locked the soil in place. Canals served as streets through the newly gained land. The first Europeans to see the Aztec capital said it was the most beautiful sight in the world, a fabulous city of floating gardens. While corn was their principal food, they also cultivated squash, chicle, and other vegetable crops. For the Aztec farmer, work began before sunrise. He and his wife both worked in the fields. They used primitive farming methods. There were neither draft animals or metal plows. Every Aztec farmer gave a part of his crops to support the priests and other officials. Surplus corn was stored in large outdoor bins to be used when harvests were poor. The Aztecs supplemented their diet of corn with other foods like turkey and honey. Excess fish, game, and crops were taken to market and bartered for other goods the people needed. Merchants traveling from market to market brought goods from distant tribes. Cotton from the lowlands south of Mexico was an important item of trade. Trading routes were guarded to assure a steady supply. Skilled craftsmen also came to market with various articles for barter, including featherwork shields and costumes. Some craftsmen were permitted to work at their crafts in the marketplace instead of laboring in the fields. Aztec families produced their own pottery. The finest ceramic ware was made for burial sacrifices. Pottery was used most often as drinking vessels, cooking pots, incense burners, and even as musical instruments. But Aztec pottery, like their architecture, was fashioned in borrowed styles. Precious metals and jewelry were brought into the Aztec cities as tribute from vassal tribes. Much of this wealth was traded in the markets. This fine jade and turquoise mask may have been taken as booty during one of their many raids for sacrificial captives. One of the greatest Aztec achievements was the building of their capital city. Their cities were built around great temples set on top of pyramids. Here the gods were worshipped and sacrifices were offered. The finest portion of every harvest was taken to the temple and dedicated to the gods. Priests were the intermediaries between the gods and men. The Aztec ruler was one of the principal priests. Festivals were organized by the priests. Games and dances were all a part of the ceremonies held in honor of the gods. Some of the priests specialized in astrology. They learned to make accurate calendars. From observation of the stars, the Aztecs carved calendar stones on which they recorded dates of some of their ceremonies. Human sacrifices were held during each of the 20 months of the Aztec year. Victims had to be found for every one of those months. In these ceremonies, the hearts of victims were cut out with stone knives and thrown into a sculptured bowl while still beating, food for the god. Most Aztec activities, birth and death, planting and harvesting, peace and war, were regulated by priestly rituals. In Tenochtitlan alone, a bureaucracy of over 5,000 priests ruled all Aztec life. The Aztecs were at the height of their power when the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Valley of Mexico in 1519. Their power was broken by the arrival of what the Aztecs believed to be the legendary white god, prophesied to return from the east to rule over them. Hernan Cortez took advantage of this Aztec belief by inviting their ruler, Montezuma II, to his camp and took him prisoner. Open warfare followed. The outraged Aztecs won a few battles against the outnumbered invaders, but eventually the Spanish captured and destroyed Tenochtitlan. Some historians believe that fear of their gods rather than the guns of the Spanish defeated the Aztecs. Today, more than 4 centuries after the Spanish conquest, many Indians living in Mexico still speak the language of the Aztecs, still preserve many ways of life of their ancestors. Modern Mexico and Mexicans are proud of much of their Aztecs lineage.
Por las hojas de un granado, ya con esta me despido. Por las hojas de un granado, y aquí se acaba el corrido de este gallo tan jugado. Y aquí se acaba el corrido de este gallo tan